Assalamualaikum. My name is Hafsa and I'm your host for YATA Talks Canada. Today, our guest is Mohammad, who is an entrepreneur in the community for a long time. He's a mind coach, and today we hope to get some information from him. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So, you're a very interesting kind of profession going on. So could you tell us a bit about that and about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I guess you're talking about I have a few lives that I live, right? About the coaching that I do, right? I have a background in something called NLP, I have a background in hypnosis, but all of this stuff aside, my passion, my motto in life is I firmly believe that if I can help other people find success, that allows success to find you. So that's essentially what I do. I work with people and organizations to help them, live better lives.
Okay, so of course you have many different things that you're doing, but today this segment is about youth and how youth can kind of integrate their home life and the social life and find a healthy medium. So tell us a bit about yourself, your life in Canada. I know you came as an immigrant to Canada, so tell us how that was for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess growing up, I never really thought I was an immigrant. I was 7 years old, so I was too young, right? And definitely Mississauga back then is very different from Mississauga now. Going to school, growing up, there was very few Muslims, right? We used to live in a community that if you actually saw another Muslim or another Pakistani, it would be an event. Like we would go over and be like, oh my God, Assalamoalaikum, right? So it's obviously very different than Mississauga now, right? But no, I mean, life was honestly great, right? Went to school here, grew up here, and I never, it was just a lot of good memories, right?
Did you ever find kind of, because I know a lot of the youth, myself included today, feel a kind of disconnect that like there's stuff at home and then there's stuff at school, people act differently in both ways. Did you ever find a disconnect, trying to find a middle ground in the middle? I think it's more of an issue now, to be completely honest, right? The only thing I remember from my youth is I wasn't allowed to have the pepperoni pizza. Right? Other than that, I think it's totally different, right? We integrated it definitely a lot better. And I think it's also one of those things that perhaps, looking back, there were times where maybe I was exposed to racism or something like that, but I just didn't know it, right? Whereas now it seems like it's either becoming an issue, and part of me wants to say perhaps we're making it into an issue, right? Yes.
So it's kind of interesting, right? Yeah.
So you just said like you didn't see it that much. Would you say, and I kind of want you to elaborate on we're making an issue. How would you say that we are making it into an issue? Well,
I always come back to, this is something I learned from Stephen Covey. He's a very well-known author, wrote a series of books, really from the 90s, so this is kind of, my generation. But he would always say, before you ask to be understood, seek to first understand others. Kind of reworded that a bit, right? But the whole point is that, I think we're almost like, what about us? What about us? Right? And it's almost like, no, like, what are we doing for others? Right? And there's also a huge mindset thing. I think, and media is part of it, right? And it's all around us, Islamophobia, and we need to integrate and all that sort of stuff. There's all these things that we live in, and that didn't exist back then. So I wasn't even aware that it was an issue. We just played and we had fun and we grew up, right? So that's kind of what I mean. Not to take away that, yes, there are definitely things happening that didn't happen 20 years ago, right? But I think there's a lot of, like, even right now, I have half my friends are non-Muslims, right? And my teachers, people who have trained me in my stuff, they're all non-Muslim, right? At the same time, that has never prevented me from being Muslim myself, right? Like, I'll go golfing with a group of friends, and it's time for Salah, so I'll be, praying, on the fourth hole or something, right? So, yeah. So, but anyways.
Yeah, what we find, what I'm kind of seeing as well, our team sees in Muslim youth these days, is that especially there's kind of the teachings we have at home,
Sure.
and we want to fit in with what's outside, but we don't want to stray too far from our teachings as well.
Yeah.
So we want to be modest, but we also want to follow the fashion trends.
Sure.
And we want to be according to Islamic, but we also want to fit in with our friends who are not exactly as religious as us. So what would you say is a good way to kind of feel you're part of the group, but then also maintain your identity?
Yeah, you know what? And so from that perspective, you know, what I'll say is actually easier now. Because we have so many Muslims and so many Pakistanis and Arabs and so many other cultures too, right? Like the Chinese or Europeans, you know, everyone that are here. Like the GTA is such a multicultural place, right? That we can totally do that. Like growing up, rarely will we see someone wear hijab, let alone a dupatta, you know, like right? So it's definitely much easier now. And I would say that it really depends on, a lot of the times, you know, it's the mindset and the perception that we ourselves have, right? And the truth is, people don't care. You know, we go out there saying like, oh my God, everyone's gonna be like, what am I wearing? I got my hijab on, or I've got a beard, or, you know, or, you know, I'm dressed modestly, right? And they're gonna judge me and all that sort of stuff. And the reality is, especially, and you see this as you get older, but most people actually don't care, right? And the ones that want to make that an issue, you're actually, you know, they're not ones to hang out with, right? But most people are very just concerned with their own lives, right? That a lot of the issues, I personally believe that if we were to almost remove ourselves from our own, you know, and look at us from a third person perspective, you'll find that, you know, we might be making things exist that don't actually exist.
Right. That's absolutely correct. It's about the people you hang out with, the people you're with constantly is how you want to change to be like them.
Yeah.
So going back to you, when you were
Sure.
younger, did you ever feel, I know you said you didn't feel too much of a disconnect, did you ever feel the need to kind of maintain your identity, but then also, because you said it's more of an issue now, it's an easier thing to solve, the fitting in. Did you find it hard to fit in?
I think it was a different time that I grew up in, right? So, you know, I was bullied like everyone else. I was bullied not because of being Pakistani or Muslim, right? So, you know, just like any other kid, I got the same amount, right? But you know, I think it always goes back to the mindset that we have, and that's really what I would love to be able to kind of convey in message is, if you live in a world where you are accepted as far as the way you think, right, you're going to be accepted, right? So there was a study done, and they asked pickpocketers, like thieves, you know, who they target, right? Do they look at, you know, is it stuff that's easily accessible? Is it people who are by themselves? And they said no, they are actually very good at understanding people's mindsets from the way they walk, right? And the person who is most afraid of being pickpocketed is the most likely to be pickpocketed.
Okay.
So the one that goes out there and is most afraid of being marginalized, or, you know, that this is an issue, they're actually creating this reality for themselves.
Okay.
Right? And so it's almost like, guys, if you live in a world where, hey, everything's good and I'm accepted, that's going to be the experience you have. And there's a lot of science, right? This is not just, you know, be positive and everything will be okay. There's actually a ton of science and research behind this.
That goes with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's very nice having you. You're a very kind of insightful person. You see the world in a kind of different lens as speaking with you, I can tell. For sure. What would you say to the youth today that they're trying so hard to fit in? What would you tell them just to, like, how to act, how to be?
Okay, so I wish someone said this to me, right? When I was younger. I would take some time and actually write down and plan the best future version of yourself. Whatever that lifestyle is, how you're spending your time, who are you with, what are you doing, right? Have that vision. That will help you actually make good decisions now. I mean, we live in a world where so much is possible because of the internet, right? And at the same time, we live in a world with so many distractions, right? So I would say is always make decisions that are going to bring you closer to that grand vision of how you want your life to be, it's absolutely possible. And spend no time or less time with people who are going to just introduce negative thoughts, right? Simple as that. Be very careful with who you hang out with, and have a planned, vision. It's like, for example, if I say to you, hey, meet me at the restaurant, and I hang up. You're going to be like,
what restaurant?
What restaurant? Exactly, right? And you may not even know where you are right now, right? And so that's the whole point behind this exercise, that it's about knowing exactly where you're going and where you are, and then you can make really, really good decisions. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us
Sure,
today.
no,
It was
thank
a
you.
pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah.
So I'm your host, Hafsa. If you're interested in getting in contact with Brother Mohammad Shaikh, his links will be down below. Our links are down below. Write to us, email us, and subscribe to us. We hope to hear more of your comments and more of your questions. Thank you for watching.